Koki's outlook on marriage and only thinking about what she did not want versus what she actually wanted affected her in a really big way. And I think it does for a lot of people.
But one thing that people love to say, especially men, that they are having children to pass on a legacy. And I want you people to tell me what the fuck are you, what are you talking about?
A lot of polygamous men will always shout that, but I asked my wife's permission. But it's like, darn if you do, darn if you don't. Because if she says yes, okay, they'll bring her to the house. If she says no, they might just put her in a different house. But there's really no consent from the other wife in polygamy. Welcome to Two Bees in a Pod. I am Bilola.
And I am B. Leonga, and this is a podcast about immigrant experiences in the U.S., sharing our perspectives on various topics,
including straddling cultures, fitting in, staying connected, learning and unlearning the good, the bad, and the ugly.
We're back with another episode of Two Bees in a Pod, and this week we're reviewing our book of the month for July, which was My Parents' Marriage by Nana Ekua Brew-Hammond. And when I tell you that I flew through this book, like, I knew I was going to like it just based on our conversations, but man, like, I never expected it.
It was too much
chaos.
Turns. It was chaotic.
Oh my god. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to our conversation. But as usual, our icebreaker. So the question today is, what is your favorite, or your least favorite rather, pick me song?
I've been listening to a lot of what is supposed to be begging R&B, because the conversation has recently on social media has been R&B is not the same because people don't beg like they used to, and they're like, especially the Gen Z kids, they say because they're so afraid of things being cringe, they don't allow themselves to be vulnerable. So Music Sermon, this page on Instagram, Music Sermon, was doing Black Music Month, and one of them, people were sharing like their favorite begging song, and they made a playlist, and Shaka Khan's Sweet Thing came up, and I've been listening to that song. Like, this one is a tie between Shaka Khan and Toni Braxton with Unbreak My Heart, because if somebody broke your heart, please, why are you begging them to unbreak your heart and undo this hurt and uncry these tears? They don't care about it.
Listen, I was obsessed with Toni Braxton. In retrospect, I probably had a crush on her, but I was obsessed, okay? So, Unbreak My Heart, like, I mean, I get what you're saying, but I also get it. Come on, it's Dark Child. Listen, do you remember I forgot the song where it starts with Dark Child. I was obsessed with that song, so I made it my email address. Dark Child 412 was my email address as a teenager.
I'm just saying that. See, when I said begging, I wanted the men begging. Like, we're talking about this song. I remember the music video so vividly. Case was in the desert begging this woman because she'd been gone for 24 hours. That's what I'm talking about. Not this one. Shaka Khan said, I would love you anyway, even if you cannot stay. I think you're the one for me. Here is where you ought to be. I just want to satisfy you. Though you're not mine, I can't deny it. How you got me?
Wait though, those lyrics just reminded me, you know who made a similar song? SZA. That Weekend song. It's kind of giving.
Which one is the Weekend song?
On the Weekend.
I don't know it.
Really? It was like pop. But yeah, no, you're right. The men really don't be begging like they used to. I mean,
in the rain.
On their knees. The shirt is open. Come on. Romance is dead.
Romance is really dead. Like, I need all of us to release shame from our bodies. Like, what is cringe? So you're not going to enjoy life because you're worried about something being cringe. Like, please, if you like somebody, beg. Just don't go and be begging somebody who is somebody else's. Because Shaka Khan sounded a little crazy. She says, love me now or I'll go crazy. And I said, excuse, this sounds like a threat. I'm sorry.
It's low-key does.
It's like a threat. So, no. Like, I want the men to beg, but not the women.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And to just go off on a small tangent about the cringe thing about Gen Z, I watched a TikTok where a college professor was saying like Gen Z is so afraid of being seen trying. Like it even shows up in their academic performance. Like they're so afraid of, like you said, appearing cringe, like people seeing them trying. And it's sad. It's sad. Like you have to, I mean, I don't know if I support it in romance, but in other things in life, you're just gonna have to swallow that cringe pill and, get to the other side in order to ever get anywhere.
What is it, Gen Alpha coming after them don't have these issues, because talking about trying, I watched my kid the other day just try. So we went to a Nike basketball event and they had like a skills challenge. So last year she did it and she won. There's a skills challenge that she's won previously. When we attended it last month, there was a girl who was really good. Like this girl was so good that she tried and tried, but it was like, yeah, nobody's beating these times. Like even the kids that were in older brackets than them could not beat this girl's time. So when we showed up on Sunday at the event, that was like her first order of business. First thing she wanted to know if the other girl was there. I was like, nah, I don't think she's coming. She's like, good. And so she went. Her first time was like 25 seconds. And then I think I watched her. She did it again to lower her time. So she got maybe 23. And then from then on, she just kept watching the scoreboard. Every time somebody brought their time down, she would go back again and do it. So she did 23. Somebody got 22. She took it down to 21. It was like 21 and change. So somebody got like 21 and change. She got it to 20. And I think she just like, you know what? I don't even care. She kept trying. She finally got it to like 19 and something seconds. And then she was like, okay, I'll let it. I think she did that right up until when they closed it and they were not taking any more competitors. Was when she stopped. And so she came back to say, I beat my own time. And it was just like watching her do this thing over and over and over just because she wanted a result. I was just like, man, I could learn a thing or two, because I think that if I had been watching her, like I wasn't even watching her, she would just come back and tell me. If I'd been watching her, I would have probably said, it's okay. You've done your best, right, and yada, yada, yada. But I just let her, and it was just like, wow. I was just like, yeah, she's equal parts obsessed, but determined. But it was just like watching her do that over and over. And so like saying that Gen Z doesn't put in effort, I hope Gen Alpha puts in effort, because...
Yeah. And it's like, even in low stakes situations, it's like they're afraid of... Anyway, let me get back to our question. So... My God. Cater to You by Destiny's Child. I hate that song. I don't know what possessed Beyonce and co to sing that song. I'm pretty sure they're not the ones who wrote it. Even if they were, like, that makes it even worse. Like, if you look at the lyrics of that song, like, that hick Misha, it's like, let me help you take off your shoes, untie your shoestrings, blah, blah, blah. I see you working hard. Girl, if you don't stand up.
This is so good. It was written by your faves. Beyonce, Kelly, Michelle, and Rodney Jenkins, aka Darkchild.
I hate that song so much. But yeah, Destiny's Child, like that is like their peak pick me song, but they have another one that is kind of pick me too. Nasty, put your clothes on. I told you, don't walk out. Just slut shaming to the max, which is ironic because Beyonce, as we see her through her career, like her clothes, are becoming less and less as she performs, and I love it. I love it for her, but it's interesting to see her evolution from singing these kind of songs to.
Let me cater to you. Now. Cater to You is just not like a parody in my head because, ma'am, I got your dinner, your dessert, and so much more.
Listen.
The BET Awards 2005, I don't know if you remember that. They pulled Terrence Howard. I'm aging myself, Jesus. Terrence Howard, Magic Johnson, and I think it was Nelly. And I think Beyonce was dancing in front of Terrence Howard. This man looked like he was transfigured. Like his soul left his body. I need to find that clip. But it looked like he had gone to heaven. It was just his body that was still in the chair. But no. Cater to you. It's kind of
Oh my
bad.
God.
It's kind of bad. But I'm telling you, break my heart. I'm just sitting there like, you're so unserious. Somebody broke your heart. Why do you think that they will break your heart? And should you even trust them to unbreak
It's
your
a
heart?
heartbreak song now. It's a heartbreak song.
I just want y'all to know, because I was asked if I would sing such a song, and I said, give me my broken glass so I can start chewing. Because I would chew broken glass before I go and beg. I'm sorry. This is not even a matter of cringe. It's against my principles.
Excuse that, because heartbreak and pain makes people do things, but you would just wake up and sing a song like Cater to You? For what reason?
Catered. No, I mean, I could sing "Unbreak My Heart" to my friend, to be honest. But
Right. But not a man.
no, not for romance. Not for romance at all. Absolutely not.
Okay, so moving on to our book of the month. Again, it's My Parents' Marriage by Nana Ekua Brew-Hammond. And if you're listening to this and you have not read the book, please,
Skip.
it is so, I mean, you can skip if you want, but definitely go and pick up the book. Like, it's so good. And you'll probably read it in record time like I did. But so this is a story that follows, and I apologize to all the Ghanaians because I will be mispronouncing names throughout. I don't know the correct pronunciation, intonation for these names, so I want to apologize to anybody, who is of that heritage. So Kokwi is a young Ghanaian woman, and she's the protagonist and the main character in this story, and she is sure about only one thing in her life. And that thing that she's sure about is she does not want to end up in a marriage like her parents had or have. Okay, so she, is kind of, I don't know if I'll describe her. She's not necessarily scatterbrained, but she just kind of lacks direction and focus in her life. Apart from this one thing that she's so sure of, like her parents' marriage has scarred her to the point that she has made it her life's mission, basically, to get into a relationship that is the opposite of that. And on top of that, her father, who is this mogul, right, very successful businessman, has plans for her and her sister to inherit and run the business. And Kokwi is, rebelling against this, and she's determined to blaze her own trail. And she meets Boris, who is, her love interest in the story. And from there, they come up with this plan. She kind of piggybacks on his plan to go to America, where he has been accepted into community college. She applies to the same community college, and they make this plan to go there. And that's kind of her plan to, free herself from her daddy's clutches. And at the same time, have this marriage with Boris that she believes will, be the exact opposite of what her parents had. But as, they start executing this plan and make it to New York, she begins to wonder whether in running from this thing, she has perhaps found herself in the exact situation that she has been afraid of her entire life. And then towards the end of the novel, tragedy strikes the family, and she and everybody else is really forced to reckon with the legacy of her father, who is at the center of this. I'm not even going to call it a family tree, it's a web, because it just ensnares people and it is very, very complicated. So that's, my own kind of general synopsis. Of course, there are going to be spoilers in this episode, but, regardless, you should definitely read the book. It's so enjoyable. So let's start with the main character, Kokwi, I don't know, the American. She said when she came to America, I love how she kept correcting people on how to pronounce her name, and they would just pronounce it however they wanted. Or in the case of the New Yorkers, they would just give her their own name. For example, like, hey, ponytail, because she always wore a ponytail. So Kokwi, this is a Nepo baby who she is really fighting against her Nepo baby status. Like, she really wants to free herself from her destiny, right? Her sister, Nami, has kind of accepted the Nepo baby, title and destiny, but Kokwi is somehow still trying to fight. So like I said, her father or their father wants them to take over his business. Now, they are not his oldest children. They are not his only children by any stretch. How many were there total? 11 by the time we get to the end of the novel?
Something like that. Just a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. It's at least 10. I want to say it's 11. So why do you think he singled out Kokwe and Nami to be the ones? Because they say, like, even from when they were young, he was taking them to the paper mill, which is his main business that he has in addition to properties. He was taking them to the paper mill to see how things are run, because it sounds like from when they were young, those are the plans that he had for them. But again, he had older children. So why these two girls? Why did he single them out?
Is it? I feel like it might have been atonement for their mother. I want Mabuli to be a real person so I can talk to him. But
Right.
he's like the rest of his peers. Honestly, there's nothing. I know I'm not answering the question, but it's like I can recognize a lot of other people's fathers
Mm-hmm.
in his story. Just the whole chaotic. Was he a polygamist even? Yes, kind of.
He was a polygamist, right? So, because in the main house, in the big house, which is in that one bougie neighborhood, Achimoto something. Achimota, yes. So they have this, house where at the time when Kokwe's mother, Micheline, finds out about, the other family,
They didn't leave.
he is living. Yeah, they did not live in that big house. So Mawuli, who is the dad and the villain of this story, to be honest, he was in that big house with 3 wives, right? So he's a polygamist, but from the way they tell the story, it sounds like each subsequent wife was not a willing participant, right? It's like he married one, they were in the house. He moved in, the second one. And just to give our listeners who maybe are not familiar, in Cameroon and other West African countries, when you get married, you can say that this marriage is going to be a polygamous marriage, even though you're just marrying one person, but you're just giving that, you're opening it, up, or you can say, oh, this is monogamous. So it sounded like he was marrying these women and then just like bringing the next wife without their consent. So that's what happened with the first 3 women who were in that big house.
Excuse me. Sorry, you said without their consent, which is a good thing because I was just thinking about it. A lot of polygamous men will always shout that, but I asked my wife's permission. They always like to say that I asked her. But it's like, she's doomed if she says yes. She's darned if you do, darned if you don't. Because if she says yes, okay, they'll bring her to the house. If she says no, they might just put her in a different house. But there's really no consent from the other wife in polygamy. Because I don't believe that once polygamy is on the table, I don't think there's any no.
Right. And to add to that, right, these women, he was marrying them in the traditional sense, right? So he would do like a knock-door and then do a traditional wedding, at least for those first 3, as well as Kokwe's mother. So again, he would do this traditional marriage with them, move them into a house, and then bring the next one again, because all of these women, like they describe it like they were bitter. One literally went mad. She had to be institutionalized in an asylum and she eventually died. So it's like it was polygamy, but non-consensual polygamy, right? Now, Kokwe and Nami, he marries their mother in the same way, right? Knock-door, traditional wedding. But he puts them in a separate house. And I don't know what was so special about their mother that he did not just drag her into this same situation.
She was a bush faller.
But Micheline, right, she was from Togo, right? While the other ladies were Ghanaian. So maybe there was something exotic about her that he just,
It was, because she spoke French now, I think, I really do.
But yeah, so for whatever reason, he has singled out these 2 daughters to inherit his business, but Kokwe, again, our main character, she's just not going for it, whether it's because of lack of interest in the business itself or because she's just rejecting everything about her father, like his, womanizing ways, the hurt that he has caused her mother and other women, and she just wants to reject everything about him, but she makes it clear that she does not want to take over the business. And then something that I found ironic, maybe even hypocritical, I'm not sure. Kokwe and Nami, they are socializing with older married men, right? Like when we meet her in the story, she's at this, it sounds like some kind of country club. They're socializing with these generals and older men who are military men. There's even one scene where like she's with an older man who's her dad's friend and they have to wait for her dad to leave before they go and sit ironically at the same table that he was sitting with some other young girl. So she is fraternizing with older married men, but throughout the book, she is expressing how much she hates what a philanderer her dad was. So what is it? What do you think is going on in her mind when she's doing this?
Madness. It's some kind of cognitive dissonance, because how do you explain it, right? Especially that you know that these are your father's friends and you know that they're married. So like you don't like it, but you're doing the same thing. I honestly don't know, but I also want to blame the men, because that description is men are not afraid of anything. That's my conclusion. When I was younger and naive, I really used to think that no, if my male friend respects me, I don't even believe that they do, honestly, that if they respect me, they will not like try to abuse my friends, or like if they're just looking for a fling, they won't do it with my friend. In the same way that men will marry people that are younger than their daughters, or they're messing around with their friend's child. Like, don't you people, it's not even shame. If you're not afraid, you're not afraid of maybe just country fashion, God, Jesus, somebody. Like, y'all don't have no fear. I mean, they're not.
They did not. I mean, the audacity. That's one thing. That Y chromosome, which I honestly believe is a mutation that causes certain defects.
It is loaded with audacity.
Audacity. But yeah, Kokwe, I'm like, girl, what are you doing? And it's not like she needs these men to pay for her drinks, because obviously their father is wealthy. So why not go and find, I don't know, she does not want to socialize with wealthy men of her age. Yeah, so let's get into Boris, right? She meets Boris at this country club, and he is an attendant, like a cleaner sort of person who is like sweeping up cigarette butts and things like that. And they start talking, and she finds out that he has been accepted to a community college in New York, and he plans to save money and fly to New York, start his new life. That intrigues her. She kind of, like I said, jumps on his train, and he helps her do the same thing. She gets admitted into the college, but she has this, I'm gonna call it a fantasy about Boris. It's really a fantasy. She, at least in the beginning, she believes that because he's poor, he's somehow immune to the kind of philandering and abusive behavior that she has seen her dad. And I don't know why she thinks that poor men cannot do the same thing.
Is it a fantasy or a fetish?
No, it's a fantasy, because she is drawn to him because he represents what she believes is the opposite of her father, the main thing being that he's poor. And she thinks that because he's poor, somehow he's not going to be, he's not going to humiliate her the way her father did to her mom. And I don't know where she got this idea. Maybe because she's a rich kid, she has not spent time around poor men. I'm like, girl, who told you that?
You've seen those memes of they're like, oh, I don't want a gold digger. Meanwhile, you're using an air mattress somewhere. Like, it's always some people just, like I said, audacity. And I think maybe she was sheltered and was not really exposed to men outside of her father and his friends. So she had these strange idea that because the man was not wealthy, I don't know, maybe he'll adore you and worship you.
And this is a quote, right? It says, this was what Kokwe had wanted, a commitment that promised to transcend the dysfunction she had grown up in. So and I don't think, honestly, it's not even fair to Boris, this kind of expectation that she's putting on him to somehow heal the trauma of her childhood, because that's really what she's doing. She's coming into this relationship thinking like, it's going to heal, and that's not fair to put on him, regardless of whether he's a good guy or not. So she's very naive in that way. And then when they get to New York, they start clashing on the topic of finances on multiple occasions, right? They have very different views when it comes to finances. So I want to talk about Boris's cousin. He has a cousin, Sammy, who lives in New York and has, that was his plan all along, to go and live with Sammy when he first got there. So of course, now that he's married to Kokwe, Sammy says, sure, bring her too. They get to this apartment, and this Kokwe too, I don't know, like she's looking around like, hold on, this is a 1-bedroom. Where are we going to sleep? and she's clearly, these are not the kind of accommodations that she's
I'm
used
used
to. And her first instinct is, because her dad gave the money, she's like, let's use the money my dad gave us, to get our own place. And Boris, like, of course, he shuts that down immediately. So they're sleeping on his cousin's sofa bed for 5 months. But she starts thinking that, and I'm not sure that I disagree with her, she thinks like Boris is in a way trying to bring her down to his level. Like some of the decisions that he's making is so that he's trying to almost punish her for being more well off than him. Like he has some resentment. And I don't disagree with that. I don't know what you think.
That do usually happen. It really does. Where, I don't know. I mean, I always feel like men try to cut women down for whatever reason. Like you saw a woman, she was living her life. She gets to do things for herself, and then all of a sudden she's materialistic. Okay, she was materialistic before you met her. So why is it a problem now? And because like he knew her family background. It was a thing they talked about. So why are you going to come and use that against me now? Like, did I hide it that my father had money before I came here?
Yeah, and then, she kind of gets into the groove of being poor and working very hard, and they get to, community college, and they're both working, and they save up an impressive amount of money for it being the 70s. In a few months, they saved up like $5,000. And then he goes behind her back and lends that money to his cousin.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, without consulting her. And she has another moment where she comes to this realization, like, hold on, I was running from philandry, but there's another type of infidelity in a marriage or dishonesty, right? And Boris is showing her, which, by the way, that's, I believe, so infidelity and finances are the top 2 reasons why, people get divorced, at least in America. So she was kind of running from one and has met the other because she was so like obsessed.
Yeah, I get that it was back in the day. And so a lot of things that people talk about, like therapy and all these things, were not necessarily available. But I think that Koki's outlook on like marriage and only thinking about what she did not want versus what she actually wanted affected her in a really big way. And I think it does for a lot of people, right? Where you get in a situation with somebody and they've done XYZ. So for the next person, you're only checking boxes of, well, that person didn't do this and this person does it. So good. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. So you're building the anti of that person without stopping to consider what you actually want instead. And I think that that's something that she really, really overlooked. Because I don't know if it's that she did not know what a good marriage looked like. She knew what a bad one looked like, and she knew she did not want that one. But I don't think she ever gave herself pause to think, what is it that I want?
Exactly. And you said something which I think applies in not just like relationships, but everywhere in life. Your motivation cannot only be what you're escaping. Because where are you running towards? You know what I mean? Like, you cannot just say, I don't want this. What is it that you actually want? And she really was not clear, as aggressive as she was. And to be honest, she was the one who was pushing this relationship forward. And she basically proposed to him. She was only saying, I don't want this. I don't want this. What is it that you actually want? Can you name the qualities that you want in a husband and in your marriage? And she never did that. And I love this quote. First of all, this novel, like, I've never, like, marked so many quotes in a book that we've read. This is what her mother said to her. She said, the suffering you're trying to outrun will overtake you and it will push you to your own. And that's exactly what happened. She was running from one thing and met an equally, bad issue. So yeah, she was not only naive, I don't know, she should have dealt with her trauma. Like you said, maybe therapy was not available to her, but she should have dealt with her trauma first before trying to pursue a relationship.
You mentioned her mom, and I find their relationship fascinating because I always say that when a divorce or separation takes place, and especially with girls, especially teenage girls, younger girls, the non-custodial parent usually gets romanticized, and then the person that you have to deal with every day usually becomes the villain. But in this case, like, her mother was the non-custodial parent, but her mother was still the one getting the emotional whacking from her. Like, she seemed a lot more angry at her mother, who more or less was a victim in the situation than her father. Because her father was a philanderer, but she'll say his weakness for women or whatever. Like, nah, he moved through the world like a typical man with no regard for anybody's feelings, anything, just his own, his pleasures and whatever he wanted in that moment. And then you're so upset at your mother, where if you look at it, she thought, and I always say whenever I talk about parents, I always say they, more often than not, parents are making what they think, they're making a decision based off of the information they had at that time. And so her mother made choices based off of the information at that time, hoping for a particular result that was influencing her choices. But she has so much smoke for her mother, and it's like, where's the same energy for your father?
Exactly. Like, she kept questioning her mother. Why aren't you divorcing him? Why aren't you divorcing him? Why don't you ask your dad that question? Like, she never questioned. The only person who had smoke for the dad in this story is Anthony. And Anthony has some good quotes, in this story. And just for context, Anthony he's the oldest son, right? He's the oldest child and oldest son out of the 11.
Yeah. We also have to talk about...
Anthony's not the oldest, because the biracial kid... Well, we'll talk about him later. Yes.
We have to talk about the role of school in her mother finding out that her children were not the only one. Because I've had several friends tell similar stories where they went to boarding school. I think this one, somebody was in Sika and another one was in Okoyon. And it was like, did you meet any of us there? It was a thing, an expectation that they were running to each other at these different schools. And it's just like, you as the man, you don't even know which school your child is going to. So you don't walk up to class and meet somebody with the same name and y'all are now looking at each other like...
That they don't know. It's not that they don't know. They don't care. They do not care, because look at, in this example, like Kokui's mother, who's Micheline, she's going to the headmaster to beg because Kokui's grades were not good enough to get into that school. So, and I'm sure the dad knew that was her intention, to try to get her into that school where her unknown half-siblings were attending. So Micheline is there begging the principal.
And they say, which one?
He makes an offhand comment, which to him, of course, he had no clue. And he's just like, oh, her brothers and sister are here. And Micheline said, hold up. What do you mean? Run that back. And the principal is like, oh, the other, what's their dad's last name? Nuga?
Yes.
The other Nuga children. And he then realizes that, he has revealed a family secret. That's not his fault, of course. And Micheline, I love what she does next. Like, she tells him to go and call all the children out of class. She takes, mind you, these kids don't. And I love the reaction of the kids, right? Because obviously they've been living with their dad and in this polygamous home. They know that their dad ain't shit. So now this strange woman calls them out of class and loads them into her car. And of course, they're kind of empathetic to her, because they're like, oh, here we go, another one. And she's takes them to one of his businesses. She tries to burn down like that one of his machines or something. I really, really loved the reaction of the kids, because they were so empathetic to her, because they knew exactly who their dad was, and they were just going along for the ride with her.
I've heard a crazy story, and it's also out of Ghana, where two brothers go to school. They see a younger kid, and immediately they're like, who's your father? And he wouldn't say. On the last day of school, they pretty much kidnap this boy and take him home. The dad sends a driver to pick them up. They take him home. And as they walk in, their father says, you people can kill somebody. They're walking with this child. I don't know if their mother knows, but he got some splaining to do. But it's just, like you said, they don't care, but like, you should care. Because the reaction of the older siblings is like, yeah, we're not new to this, we're true to it. But I don't think that the children should be exposed to these things at like such a young age. It's just like, here we go again. No big deal. Like, this is chaos now.
Exactly.
This is just too chaotic.
So, Micheline, what does she do? She, obviously she comes to the house, sees the three wives, sees all the children, Mawali is there just, like,
Okay. Good.
the man does not panic at all. So, and I like, you know what? I know it's traumatic to the children, but I like what Micheline did. And I like what the woman did like decades later when she came on. So Micheline dropped Kokwe and Nami. She was like, here, now they're gonna live with you. She left them, and going forward until their 20s, they were only seeing her once a year. And that, they were what?
She
Kokwe
left
was like
the
12
whole...
years old at that time.
She left the entire country.
Yes. She left her two daughters in their father's polygamous house, went back to her home country of Togo. And I really love that, and more women need to do that again. I know that's traumatic to the children, but it's like, no, leave the man to deal with the consequences of his actions. In present day in the story, a woman brings a baby. Mind you, Kokwi's dad he's over 50 years old. Why do you have a newborn baby? A woman brings a newborn and he's like less than 6 months, and she leaves that child, at the house. And again, Mawali just takes it in stride.
Of course. Like somebody else is doing the caring now. I don't know. But back to this thing of leaving your child, right? The problem is you have to make sure that it's not a witch that is raising them. Because as he does not care, he's going to leave your kids in the house with somebody who can be treating your children any which way, kind of way.
That's
and
true.
they don't care. So that's just a little bit, but he's going to be unbothered. You said he's 50. I just remembered, I think it's Robert De Niro who has a newborn or like an infant at like it's
And I don't know if people know this information because, older women have been, vilified for so long. And, we all know that as the mother gets older, there are risks, right, to the pregnancy. But that is also true for the father.
The man.
The older the father is, and as well as his health, also, regardless of his age, his health also impacts the quality of sperm, and it impacts the child. So men think like, oh, I'm okay having kids in my 70s. Like, no, your age, as you get older as a man, it impacts the health of not only the child when they come out, but during the pregnancy, like preeclampsia, things like that are influenced by the quality of sperm. Like you guys, men, they have a lot more influence in, the health of the pregnancy and the child than they think, or like more than they want to take responsibility for. So I'm glad that science is coming out more and more.
And there's just something to be said about having a child in your 70s or 80s. Like, that child at best is getting, 10 good years from you. I don't believe that at 70, 80, you can be a present parent. And just like 70-year-old having a child today, when they're 10, you're 80, and you're going to PTA with some of these Gen Z kids. And when the teacher says something, they go, clock it. Just no, but like, what quality of life are your kids getting from you? That's really something that I think about, because there's really not much. I'm sorry, but there's not.
And I don't understand like the dedication that Mawali have had for 12 years. For 12 years to be living a double life where, and again, we don't know, maybe Micheline saw, like, maybe there were red flags and she was intentionally being obtuse and just not. Because how are you in two households? And Kokwi was even thinking back, she was like, well, he used to go on business trips and to his village.
Exactly. He goes on business trips. Isn't
But
that
I
how
guess-
pilots and some of these occupations where they travel, they keep families? Or like even in Cameroon, where somebody was an administrator out of where like their family lives, and they have a whole entire family over there. I mean, we had a neighbor, somehow everybody on our street knew that he had another family. I don't know if his wife knew, but it was not a secret that sometimes when people, like, you'll be sitting at home and they kind of like, oh, he's coming back from his other house. Like, when people want to be dishonest, some people are committed to it.
He was clearly committed, but also it worked because the women in the main house, right, the polygamous women, I'm sure they knew that he was going to another woman or another family.
Yeah.
Because they have already accepted their lot, their unconsensual polygamy.
He was only hiding it from Micheline. I really do think that he had, I don't know if regard is not the word, but he had something. I wouldn't say maybe a fondness, but the fondness was not enough for him to wrap it up and keep it in his pants. Like, he liked her enough to, like, keep her away from the main house, and then even still, like, bringing the kids to visit her, and then, like, play house with her for a week, and then go back to business. And like, she's not alone in that. I always say that these men, they will take as much or as little as you're willing to give, and they will take it with a smile on their face. So if you allow them to keep taking your crumbs, they will take it and adore it from you until you decide that no more, that they might try to leave you alone. You might still have to play whack-a-mole, but they will pop up, and if you allow them, they will keep popping up. And I think that might have been Micheline's weak point with Mawuli.
I just don't understand. Like, I think she was playing a long game where she thought that if she maintained a romantic relationship with him, it strengthened the chances of her daughters inheriting the business and having a stronger claim to his property after he died. And I think she thought that would apply to her too. I think that was definitely, I think she was romantically, foolishly attached. But I think she thought that she was playing some kind of long game that was securing her and her daughter's inheritance after he died. And the other person who was definitely playing a long game, which it did not work out for her, Hema, which is his current wife in the story, right? The woman who is now in the big house. All the other ladies have either died or ran away. So Hema is the person who is living, the wife who is living with him when he dies. He's only legally married to one person, right?
Isn't it her? It's not her?
Yeah, he's actually legally married in court. And again, so he has no children with her. She does not seem to flinch when that lady brings baby Kojo.
Coffee. Is it coffee or Kojo?
Sorry, it's coffee. Brings baby coffee and dumps the baby. Hema looks unperturbed, okay? She's also unbothered when Mawuli and the girls are going on their annual Christmas trip to Togo to be with Micheline. And throughout the book, you're wondering, like, what is up with this lady? She has her own money. She's a rich bitch, so she's clearly, we don't think she's there for the money, but then towards the end of the book, when, spoiler, Mawuli dies, then she gets into bitch supreme mode and she kicks and she said, "Get out of my house." Get out of my house. She immediately starts, like setting up the paperwork so that she's the sole beneficiary. Obviously that does not work out for her. By the time the novel ends, it's kind of up in the air, but it doesn't seem like it's going to work out for her because of what's in his will. But these two women, right, Micheline and Hema, I feel like they thought they were playing the long game. And
didn't he also have some contacts through Hema? Wasn't there something like her father was a politician?
From a royal family. She was from a royal family, yeah. And she had a business herself. She had like a trucking or transportation business, which he was, benefiting from in some way. But yeah, I think she thought she was quite diabolical, which I like that about her. But this is the thing that I always say when women think like they can finesse, patriarchal systems. Like it's not going to work. You will always be the loser. Like, don't try to play the game. Remove yourself from the court, remove yourself from the pitch, from the field. You will never win as a woman. Like, you cannot finesse. Don't think that you can tolerate disrespect, humiliation from a man because there's some reward. Like, you have already lost, and she lost in a big way. Both of them did.
And in this story, it's sort of different, but I've also seen a situation where a man is living his chaotic, polygamous life, having the children and there. And I want to say maybe the only thing different is, I want to say something that he probably did intentionally, where all the children see themselves as siblings, even though the mothers cannot necessarily stand each other. But then the man dies, and then his family now comes and is trying to sideline all the kids and the wives in the picture to take property. And where these women, like, because there's only one villain in all of these stories, is one person, is the man. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you're able to recognize that, because when he passed away and his family started misbehaving, the wives had to get together and make sure they stuck together for their children. If not, they were going to leave those children high and dry.
Yep. And this is a quote that I really love from Micheline. She was talking to Mauli's, I think it's his brother, right? It's Festus's brother or his cousin. She says, in fact, you wear your customs like costumes. When you don't like one, you switch to the other, mixing and matching to suit yourselves. So she's talking about how, Micheline, she was fronting all the costs for the funeral. And she was like, listen, we're going to be very straightforward. We're not going to do any extra shit. We're going to have a wake, a burial, and a Thanksgiving service. And his family wanted to do all these other traditional things according to their Ewe traditions and this and that. And the brother was trying to say, it's our custom. So that was her rebuttal to him. It's like, you guys pick, and this is true of African men, especially today, but Africans in general, picking and choosing to say, oh, this is our custom, this is our tradition. When it suits you, when it doesn't,
Yes.
then you want to be modern. You want to be Western, you want to be, but when it's time, particularly when it comes to oppressing people, then you know tradition very well. You know tradition very well that time.
Jeez. Yep, you reminded me where they brought up tradition. And then when somebody countered like, well, in tradition, this would be okay. They say, is it all tradition you follow?
Yep.
How can you quote tradition and then like 10 seconds later you're like, is it all tradition? That's such a good point. Or sometimes people don't even know tradition, because I remember when people say that's not our culture, I'm like, what's your culture exactly? I always ask, for Yoruba traditional weddings, right, the groom's family brings gifts and the bride has to go and pick something from all the gifts that are presented. And these days, especially in like Pentecostal or most families, she's expected to pick a Bible. And I'm like, excuse, why is the Bible in your traditional wedding? Like, how did it get here? And like, why is it that the expectation is that she should pick a Bible? I feel like you're going to have your church wedding, leave that there. That's just me. And I always ask, but it's just like, Bible is not really part of the culture now. Or on another note, it was asking somebody like, oh my God, why is a man wearing a skirt? But when we all wear our country clothes. In Sawaland, men tie their sanja. In graphic culture, there's no trouser under the togo. It's a skirt. I said, but we wear skirts. They're like, no. I said, so just because we call it a skirt, they said there's a time and place for that. I said, why are you relegating your culture to particular things? Why can't you wear your culture every day? But it's like the minute we put certain things on, then it's like, oh, no, not that part of the culture.
Exactly. Which was Micheline's point. So Mawuli, like we said, he is the villain. He is the final boss of African men because, like you said, we hear all these stories, but I mean, he took it to a level that was, unheard of. And again, shout out to Anthony. So Anthony is the oldest son. He was, I believe, in the UK. In the novel, we only meet him like when he comes back. He's not even coming back to bury his dad. He's coming back to get what has been bequeathed to him, in the will. He makes it very clear. He's very bitter. He hates his dad, obviously, and I don't blame him. He's only coming for the money and the properties, and he's like, let's get this shit over with. But Kokwe has a memory where Anthony asks his dad, he says, how can you, who loved your mother so much, continually humiliate the mothers of your children? Isn't our love for our mothers as important as yours? And I really love that quote because Mawuli did really love his mother. Like she came from nothing, and kind of set him up to be the great man that he was. Like she even named him, a name that almost prophesied, right? Like what he was going to achieve. So he loved his mother so much. I think he either built a hospital in her name or like remodeled some wing of the hospital in her name. And he was always, like donating in her name. He even put that in the will, like the children were supposed to continue that annual charity that he had set up in her name. So he loved his mother. So again, to Anthony's point, you loved your mother so much. How are you treating the mothers of your children so poorly? Don't you think like they love their mothers as much as you loved yours? Which is a question that should be positioned to all African men who behave like this, because they will all swear up and down that they love their mothers.
And then they'll turn around and do the same nonsense. You have the ones who talk about how much their mother suffered with their father and did all these things, and then their father dies and their mother remarries and they're mad at her. Or it's like, oh, my mother went through all of this suffering, so I haven't even done half of what my father did. Why can't you bear with it? It's crazy. It is so crazy. It's like sometimes, right, you read stories on the internet and you're looking at people. Granted, we say that every child gets a different version of their parents, but you see the way that girls react to their father's treatment of their mother versus how boys react to the same mother, and it's just like, you people grew up in the same house, because it's like you saw this person suffering and one person's idea of it is to like do all of this, and then yours is just like, nah fam, I'm just gonna, keep doing what my father did. I'm gonna talk about how horrible he was, but I'm also just going to do maybe a lighter version.
And yeah, I mean, shout out to Anthony, because he left, right? Like, he left, I think after his mother, like, left, he also left, and he, like, confronted the dad, like, basically told him, and he's the only child, to my knowledge, who ever stood up to Maui that way. So, and then Kokwe, too, like we were saying earlier, she has all the smoke for her mom. She never confronts her dad about his behavior, but throughout the book, she's wondering, at one point, she's like, how can he be such a disciplined businessman, but he does not apply the same discipline when it comes to women? Listen, Maui is so slimy that it's kind of suggested in the book that he's even sleeping with Michelin's housekeeper. There's a couple of times that Kokui like mentions that. I'm like, how gross are you? The one time a year you're coming to visit this woman and you're trying to hook up with her housekeeper? Sir. Like, you cannot behave yourself for just 1 week.
No, the astronomer CEO could not behave himself either, so it's just indiscipline.
And then the surprise at the end of the book when they're reading the will, Festus Weber. So I kind of, this one did not surprise me, even though the characters in the book were surprised. It did not surprise me because they kept mentioning this Julia Weber, who is the one who gave him his initial capital to come back to Ghana and start his paper mill. And I was like, I bet you that man kept a child in Germany. So I was not surprised when, this biracial kid Festus shows up at the reading of the will, which you are polygamous. All of your wives know that you're trash. Like, why are you hiding this one kid from everybody? Like, why was he a secret?
You just reminded me. That has just reminded me, and I've gotten upset all over. Did you ever watch this show on Amazon Prime called Riches? It was about this businessman. He's Nigerian. He had 2 kids with his first wife when they were struggling to build a business. And then when the business took off, he left her for some other lady. He had 3 kids. Now, these other kids are raising like affluence. They're mostly spoiled. Meanwhile, those first 2 kids, they've struggled with their mother. And then when he's dying, he calls his oldest daughter and she's like investigating who was stealing money, yada, yada, yada. And then turns out, like, the last episode, we find out that he also had a child with his secretary. And season 2 would have been so great, they canceled the show, and now I'm upset all over. But it sounds just like this.
Speaking of,
you should watch it.
Horrible fathers. And I just want to say that I'm getting this information entirely from the internet, so, it's not verified. But apparently Brian McKnight is a horrible, horrible person. Brian McKnight, like, I was shocked. If you don't know the lore, listeners, like, go and look it up on TikTok, or probably TikTok is the best place to get the lore. Yeah, Brian McKnight, apparently horrible dad.
Reddit, no, he's horrible. His son just passed away. And
yes,
even then,
allegedly,
even then, he couldn't even respect this boy. Just even, where they say if you have nothing good to say, don't say anything. Like, try to antagonize this boy's mother. No.
Yeah.
No.
A shame.
He needs to start back at 1. He needs to take his own advice and start back at 1.
I just want to give a quick shout out to the unsung hero in this story, Aram. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Aram. This is Mauli's housekeeper / nanny / everything. She's a relative of his cousin, and she basically raised all of his plenty children, including the baby.
Coffee.
Who they came and dropped off, out of the blue in his, when Mauli was in his 50s. And the way they just like casually, the night that they bring the baby, like, he will sleep in Aram's room until we figure something out. And then she's basically raising this kid. It's her kid now, apparently. Like, it's crazy. And there are so many Arams in African households today. and even more when we grew up. These relatives, whether distant or like immediate cousins who are just relegated, of course underpaid, just on 24/7 childcare duty, housekeeping duty, all of the things. The one redeeming thing is that he made generous accommodations for her in his will. Like he left her, I think, a house, he left her money. So he did take care of her in the will, but when she was alive, she was basically just cleaning up his mess, her whole life or his whole life.
Now, African men and their chaos. I just want to say the bar is in hell because I want to give Mawuli just a little bit for at least having a will. Chaotic one, but at least having it. Because my father had a patient back in the 90s. For years, he would beg this man to write a will, and he refused. This man is your polygamist. You own several businesses, plantations. Why won't you write a will? Why do you want your funeral to become a WWE show? Why? What is the reason?
They don't care. He's not going to be here to witness it. What's his problem?
Why? I mean, maybe one day we'll talk about why Africans don't build generational businesses. Like, why don't we have like a third generation business? It's all of this chaos. Because far too often the wealthy people end up being philanderers and having all these children. And then they die without wills, or people are contesting the wills. And then by, your children are fighting, by the time it gets your grandchildren, there's nothing left.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I think there are some. Maybe we haven't been independent long enough to really see the trend in multi-generational, successful multi-generational businesses.
No.
It's true.
No. Think about when our parents talk about the successful businessmen that they grew up looking at. Go look for their businesses and see how many of them survived. Very, very few. And then now from our parents' generations, how many of them inherited businesses that have outlived them?
So one more quote, and it's from Anthony again. He says, and he's talking with his sisters. He said, his legacy is a divided house. His widow is only making it official. And I love that quote so much. And I want to talk about this myth of legacy, right? Because as a child-free by choice person, you will hear these, everybody wants to give their opinion on why you should have a child, or who's going to take care of you when you get older, this, that. But one thing that people love to say, especially men, that they are having children to pass on a legacy. And I want you people to tell me, what the fuck are you, what are you talking about? Like, what is the legacy that you're passing on? I don't think people understand that term. First of all, they're using it incorrectly. Your legacy is not your children. And this is the example that I give. Michael Jordan, right? One of the greatest athletes of all time. Michael Jordan has children, but when we talk about him, his legacy is his athletic performance, his athletic history. It's not the children. I cannot name one of Michael Jordan's children because they are not his legacy. His legacy is what he did. So
No. It definitely is his sports and his business acumen from the Jordan brand. Definitely.
Right.
When we talk about Michael Jordan, it's sports and finance, yeah.
So what the hell are you people talking about? Oh, I want to have children because of legacy. What fucking legacy, bro? Tell me the legacy that you leaving behind.
Once upon a time, I was talking to somebody who told me that he was very happy when his wife had their first kid and it was a boy because they were going to pass down the family name. Do you want to take a gander at what his last name was? It was a Caucasian man.
Smith?
Moore.
Don't even get me started on the last name inheritance thing, because I have many unpopular opinions and hot takes about naming children. But yeah, I really want us to, and the women who are just nodding along with your partners who are talking this legacy nonsense, your children are not your legacy. I'm not my father's legacy. His legacy is whatever he did and the impact that he had on the people in his lifetime. His patients, whatever, his staff when he was running hospitals, the people in his personal life, whatever he did for them, good or bad. That's his legacy. I'm not my father's legacy. You know what I mean? Like, I hate when people use that term because they always use it incorrectly. Your legacy is the things that you did when you're alive and the impact that you had. If you have 100 children, those are not your legacy. Maybe your legacy is the abuse that you give to your children, that could be a legacy, but the children themselves are not. Well, it's true. I want parents to think about that.
Like, yeah, your children are not your legacy. I agree with that. I don't know. People had, or I want to talk about like legacy, generational wealth. That's another thing that has just taken over our addiction lately. Generational wealth. Like, sorry, bro. No, that's not generational wealth. But I think that people need to re-examine but that's a different episode, right? Re-examine the whys of why they're having children. I always feel like sort of uncomfortable when someone says, oh, well, she needed a playmate. Wow. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's better for you to have them as your legacy or the playmate for the other one, but it's just some of these things where people, like, children are not your legacy. Do right by people. And also, okay, you are just having these children as a legacy. Like, what quality of life are you giving them? How are they going to remember you? How are they going to talk about you? And I always tell people, don't hold on to things that, oh, I'm doing this for my children. Because, bro, your aesthetic might not be your child's aesthetic. They would just be putting you in the funeral home and they will be looking for an appraiser for that house that you were saving for your children.
This is kind of a little bit of a tangent, but I listened to this. It's a TikTok who people like write, a TikTok creator, people write into her, and it's regretful parents. I know there's a subreddit of regretful parents, but she has like, a TikTok where she reads letters that regretful parents have written to her. And this one lady was like, she had a very hard childhood and blah, blah, blah. She became pregnant, like had an unplanned pregnancy, and she decided to have the child, and she wanted to give that child the childhood that she never had. And I'm just like, if you think that you missed out on certain things in childhood, why don't you just give it to yourself as an adult? Reparent yourself. Who told you that child wants the things that you think you missed out on? Like, give yourself the things that you thought you were lacking. Why do you have a whole child? You think having that child is going to erase what you experienced? No. Reparent yourself as an adult and give yourself those things. I think that people, you put so much on children, forgetting that they're their own person. Like, you were the channel to bring them here. They are not a reflection or, some kind of vessel for you to relive something that you thought you missed out on, or to, for you to live vicariously through. But a lot of people treat their children that way. That's my rant.
People think their children are little mini dams, and they really aren't. And it's better to catch on to this earlier than later, because they'll show you Pepe. When you keep expecting you out of them, then you get frustrated when they don't give you, and you're setting yourself up for a relationship that is more tedious, more difficult, more tension-filled than needs to be.
And I think, honestly, that was what happened with Maoli and Kokwe. Like, he kept expecting her to have the same passion for his business that he did, and he kept telling her, he was one of these people who kept retelling his success story, like, oh, I started from nothing. This is what I did as a small boy. I did all of this. Okay, you did that, sir, but now you have created a very comfortable life for your children. You think they're gonna have the same kind of motivation and struggles? They're not, and that's a good thing. Don't expect that same kind of grit from them. They have the luxury to be able to explore things simply out of curiosity, not out of necessity. And you have to accept that when you are a successful person. Like, your children are not going to have that same experience, but I think he wanted that same kind of drive from her, and it was simply not happening. Because, of course, she grew up rich and he didn't.
Ooh, man.
Anyway, like, closing thoughts, I loved this book so much. Highly recommend if you're listening and you haven't read it. I like how it ended, because I low-key like endings that kind of leave us guessing. But if I had to see it all the way through, obviously it seemed like the wives would be left with nothing and the kids would, inherit the businesses and the properties, and of course they would take care of their mothers, which is what he said in the will, that he's leaving all this to the children knowing that they're going to take care of their mothers. But Hema, unfortunately, who didn't have children with him,
did not have a child. Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Hema doesn't have a child.
She was wealthy, but she put herself through those years of humiliation for nothing.
Exactly. She put up with him. I don't know. I don't know. It was a chaotic book. It's a book where I think that if you've grown up in some kind of West African household, you've seen some of these stories. You've seen some parts of this play out in real life. So it's not all that shocking or surprising. The characters were just like, Kokwi was just annoying and naive enough. Like, he didn't necessarily like just straight up like, oh my God. But like, every character felt like they had just the right mix of annoying and likability. Outside of Maoli. That one, I still want to slap him. But it was a really good book. And especially since I found it by accident, I went into it not knowing what to expect, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really did too. So yeah, thanks for that recommendation. And I think our book of the month next month is going to be a good, not a contradiction, but kind of another side of the coin of polygamous or, chaotic marriages and households. And the August book of the month is The Secret Lives of Baba Shegi's Wives by Lola Shonein. And I read this book long ago. It's one of my all-time favorite novels. So if you have not picked it up, definitely do. And again, I think it will be a really interesting read after this one.
Yes,
I'm not giving away spoilers,
it's a really good one.
Yeah.
And they've actually had a live play that they've done in London the last couple of years. I think they just ended the last run back in June. I would love to see it. Like to see the show in person, because when I remember reading this book and just being like, damn, wow, yes, finally, redemption. So I enjoyed it, so I guess I'm looking forward to rereading it again. I don't remember being upset in some parts. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it again.
Same. All right. So if you're not following us on YouTube, we are at 2Bs in a Pod. On Instagram at 2Bs Pod. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And until next time.
If you want to know the end, look at the beginning.
I don't always agree with that statement, but I think in the context of this book, I do.
Yeah, like chaos breeds chaos now. I think that's in this case, yes, it applies. Not every time. People change sometimes at the end, but I think for most of us, if you want to understand certain things about us, look at how we were raised, and you get a sense of who we are.
Agree.
Not just how we were raised, where we grew up, where society also affects us, and then who raised us and how they did that.
And it doesn't mean that you cannot work through that trauma and not bring it to your relationships. But for example, let's just say Boris had met Kokwi out of not knowing how she grew up and who her father was. The way that she acted and behaved in that relationship is a direct consequence, right, of what she experienced as a child. And unfortunately for her, she, without unpacking that, she just jumped into that marriage thinking that it was going to save her, basically, from her past.
Yeah. Or I just remembered, I guess since Malcolm Jamal Warner passed away and all the clips and videos of him talking, there's this video, he was on a podcast not so long ago, and they asked him about what he thinks his legacy would be. And he said that he was a good person. And he said he's a good person because his father is a good person. And which speaks to what we are saying, that, if you're raised by a good person, you probably will be a good person. And he was aware of that I think he asked his father, and his father told him people remember him for the things he did, for how he made them feel, and that he was a good person. And he believes that because his father is a good person.
I love that. Hopefully all these children, against the odds, will turn out to be good people. All right.